What's up, squad? Back with another video. I'm Reckless. You know me. Got Vivek Ramaswamy, I'm saying, and our Sharpton. Seen a little preview, little 5-second clip of this, and I wanted to jump right into it. Make sure y'all hit the like button, subscribe. Make sure y'all check out the other drop today. Drop 2 videos a day if y'all new to this channel. Make sure y'all hit the like button, subscribe, and let's get in the video.
Repeatedly now, referring to Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and author Ibram Kendi as, quote, grand wizards of the modern KKK. Now, I understand you differ with both of them politically and probably with me. But as a graduate of Harvard and Yale universities, I believe you must be aware the Ku Klux Klan is not a political party. It's a terrorist organization. Historians view the Klan as the driving force behind lynchings of blacks in the American South, more than 4,000 people murdered from 1877 to 1950. And the group is linked to numerous other acts of racial violence continuing through the civil rights movement to the present day. You're running to be the leader of the free world, so your choice of words matter. Have you taken any time to reflect upon the possibility that comparing your political rivals to murderous terrorists might put their lives in danger at a time when hate crimes are on the rise? Or do you just don't care?
So Reverend Sharpton, I don't look at the world through political parties. Frankly, it's good to see it's been 20 years since we last spoke. And part of the reason that I came to that event 20 years ago with you is that you were a political outsider just like I am in my own party. But let me talk about the issue you're actually asking about, which is that, you know, what's toxic about that old world view of organizations like the KKK, which have been a god-awful stain on our national history, is that they say that your skin color determines what you're allowed to say, what you're allowed to think. To say you have to shut up, sit down, and do as you're told because you're black or brown skinned. Well, you know what Ayanna Pressley said much more recently is that we don't want any more black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't want any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. And so, yes, I do think there are echoes of a historical ugly racism in this country now showing up in new clothing.
To say we
and
don't
what I want to lead us to as the next president
just a second.
is a
to say
united
that we
nation.
do not want.
See, and that's one thing that I do not like when somebody does. It don't matter who it is. I'm not taking sides or nothing like that. But if a person is talking, and I mean talking, not taking a pause, not, you know, stopping their work. I'm talking about when a person is talking, at least give them that respect, that same respect that you got when you were talking.
In this country now showing up
Especially
in
about
new
something like this.
and what I want to lead us to as the next president
just a second.
is a
To say
united
that we
nation
do not want
where we
black
don't actually
voices,
judge each other on the
to
color of our
say
skin.
that is not going with sheets and burning crosses and lynching people. If she said something you disagree
but
with,
the point I'm making,
you cannot equate Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan with somebody saying something that you think is a little controversial or a little too far. Some of our relatives were terrorized by the Ku Klux Klan. I'm trying to get you to understand the pain.
Because then right here, this happens. When a person doesn't get out what they need to get out, they still trying to get it out while the other person interrupt them in the first place. Now, you all over the place. Y'all over the place.
Some of our relatives were terrorized by the Ku Klux Klan.
He's not listening.
I'm trying to get you to understand the pain.
I know you're intellectually honest. I know you're an intellectually honest guy, and so I will remind you that Hakeem Jeffries drew analogies between Donald Trump and the Ku Klux Klan, and I don't think you had him on pressing him in the same way. So we're drawing analogies here to make a point.
He did not call Donald Trump the grand dragon of the KKK. He did not call Donald Trump an officer of the modern KKK. Let's not change what was said.
So, Reverend Sharpton, though, I'm calling out a double standard and saying that certain people can use certain analogies to make a point. Well, I'm using an analogy to make a point. And the point I'm making is we should stop seeing each other on the basis of our skin color. It was god-awful when the KKK did it, But you know what? We have to learn a lesson in the present that we're creating more racial division in this country.
But you
when you say
cannot
if
do
you
it
have black
being
skin, you can only
insensitive.
think one thing.
You cannot do it being insensitive to our feeling. Like, that's like calling somebody of any kind of group that had a group that were terrorizing
So I agree
and
with you, we
killing
need
them.
sensitivity.
So I think we need to be very
part of
careful
what we need
about
is
that.
open
And I wanted to raise that
conversations.
with you
We need
directly. Let me go to my next point.
And I respect that you're
because I
willing to have
want
an
to get
open
to your
conversation.
campaign, but
That's
I
what we
want to
need in this
ask you a
country.
couple of questions. And one thing, you know, if you talked, you mentioned we talked 20 years ago, and I'm going to get to that, but you should have known 20 years ago. You're not going to out-talk me, so let me ask my question. I'll let you talk, then I'll go back to the next
Goes both
point.
ways, yeah.
All right.
It goes both ways.
You've spoken out against affirmative action and
The
diversity.
fact that he's still holding his ground, it goes both ways.
Go out-talk me, so let me ask my question. I'll let you talk, then I'll go back to the
Goes
next
both
point.
ways, yeah.
All right.
Ramaswamy's
You've
attitude
spoken out
is
against affirmative action and diversity programs, even though it is a reporting in Axios and elsewhere have produced evidence. Your own former company has been involved in various DEI and ESG initiatives. Your own companies, DEI, diversity. I would hope we can agree that historically many communities of color have not enjoyed the same socio-economic benefits as white Americans, and many of those disparities persist to this day. What specifically would you do as president to address that problem, keeping in mind your own company got diversity business?
Yeah, so I want to be very clear about that. After I stepped down as CEO, precisely to speak my mind freely, the company that I founded went the direction of most companies in corporate America. And I disagree with that decision. But you're asking a more important question about what are we going to do to ensure equality of opportunity in this country. You're right. We have been an imperfect nation. I've always said it. But we aspire towards perfection. How do we go that next step? I want to make sure kids aren't trapped in the ghetto of a zip code that they happen to be born in. To the contrary, I think every parent deserves to have the opportunity to send their kids to the best possible school. That's why I favor radical school choice in this country. I think it's a mystery, Reverend Sharpton. The very people who will wax eloquent about systemic racism are also the ones who are opposed to educational mobility. That's why I've said shut down the U.S. Department of Education. Use that $80 billion. Put it in the hands of parents so they can actually send their kids to that best possible school they can. That's the actual civil rights issue of our time. So I stand for solutions. I stand for equality of opportunity. But I reject race-based quota systems.
I did not go to Harvard, but I know when a question is not answered. I did not ask you about education. I asked you about diversity in business. I asked you about a company you headed getting DEI. How do we deal with
here's what I'm against.
Wait a minute. Let me ask the question again. How do we deal with the economic disparity in businesses of color and people of color in the economic arena? You ran the school choice, good duck, but wrong show. Deal with the economic. You're a businessman.
It's actually related. You know, I know you're smarter than this to know that education leads to economic prosperity. So there's no Band-Aid fix.
But after you're educated, we have educated people that can't get contracts. We have educated people that have no problem with being educated that can't get contracts. How do you deal with the inequality in how they do business in this country, how they get jobs? That's where the DEI programs come from.
So I understand where they come from. I'm against it because it causes us to see one another on the basis of our skin color. I can tell you from personal experience, I have hired, both in businesses I've founded, even in this campaign, people who are black executives who have, I think, been unfairly judged. I put them in those positions because of merit. Other people at the companies and otherwise have seen those people as getting that position because of racial quota systems. That is wrong, no matter whether you're black or white.
Many of them
we need to go
barred
back to
because
colorblind meritocracy. That's what we need in this country.
Well,
that's how I've led the companies I've built. That's how I will lead this country.
You know that many of them
were
barred and had the merit. But since you talked about experience, I need to show you this tape. Back in 2003, when I ran for president and you were there to ask me a question at a forum I was doing at Harvard.
He ran for president? I did not know that.
Harvard University. So 20 years later, now my turn to ask.
I was born in '98, so don't be too mad at me, but I didn't know that. I'm learning every day.
Let me first play you the tape of you and I 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Let's get to my question here. Go ahead.
Reverend Sharpton, hello. I'm Vivek, and I want to ask you, last week on the show we had Senator Kerry, and this week and the week before we had Senator Edwards. And my question for you is, of all the Democratic candidates out there, why should I vote for the one with the least political experience?
Well, you shouldn't, because I have the most political experience. I got involved in the political movement when I was 12 years old. And I've been involved in social policy for the last 30 years. So don't confuse people that have a job with political experience.
Welcome to the Quick Start Guide for setting up your first ad campaign with TikTok Ads Manager. If you...
Let me go back.
I got involved in the political movement when I was 12 years old. And I've been involved in social policy for the last 30 years. So don't confuse people that have a job with political experience. So 20 years later, now my turn to ask you, of all the Republican candidates out there, why should someone vote for you, the one with the least political experience? And I might add, you've never held office. You've only voted twice.
That's correct.
In the last few elections. You don't even vote regularly.
Yes.
And you support Donald Trump, who never held office until he was president. Well, you putting a different standard on me, but I won't even make the racial application there. Why should we vote for you?
Listen, at the age of 18, I think you persuaded me on that one, that political experience is not the same as holding office. To tell you the truth, the reason I came out there and I was intrigued.
Can I put out right-wing press that Sharpton converted a young, well, I don't want to take credit for
to
you.
To believe outside of political experience, you know, I'm going to tell you the truth. One of the things, I'll even give you one more for you, okay? You were the only anti-war candidate back then. I was against the Iraq War. As I recall, you were the only anti-war candidate in either party. Well, guess what? Tables turn now. I'm the only true anti-war candidate in either political party now when it comes to Ukraine. I believe in America First policies. I think this Ukraine war does not advance American interests. I was the only person with the courage to say that on the Republican debate stage last week.
He was.
The real war I would...
He was. And I forgot who it was. I think it was DeSantis that kind of put his arm up. But he was the only one. He was literally waving his hand the whole time. So you do got a point there.
I think this Ukraine war does not advance American interests. I was the only person with the courage to say that on the Republican debate stage last week. The real war I would take on is the war against the administrative state, the shadow government here at home. I think the people who we elect to run the government, once again, ought to be the people who actually run the government, not the cancerous bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. I'll have a 75% headcount reduction for all of the people who weren't elected in Washington, D.C. So this is a very different vision than you hear amongst traditional Democrats for sure, but even amongst traditional Republicans. I want to shut down the administrative state. I want to declare independence from China. I want to grow our economy by drilling and fracking and embracing energy. And I want to revive national pride in this country. That's not a Republican idea or a Democratic vision. It is a pro-American vision. That's what I stand for. It's why I'm in this race.
I would take issue that when I oppose...
The way he just said that and put that demo down like that, that was smooth. That was real smooth. Al Sharpton been talking this whole time. It's been arguments, but I feel like it was a little bit of, you know, a moment right there. So that's
it's a pro-American vision. That's what I stand for. I'm in this race.
I would take issue that when I opposed the war in Iraq and going for weapons of mass destruction that wasn't there, so I ended up being right. You can't compare that to the United States supporting Ukraine defending itself against Russia. So
look, I think there's a myth that Ukraine's actually, I think I was against the Iraq war then, but I'm consistent now. Ukraine is not some democracy that we've now painted it to be. I think this is a regime that really has some serious flaws as well.
Ukraine is in
So I think I respectfully disagree with you.
strategic place where
I respectfully
we have
disagree
allies
that I do
and
not
NATO
think
surrounding.
that
But all right, we can agree to disagree on
Ukraine
that.
is not a NATO ally, and Ukraine doesn't advance U.S. interests.
We disagree
So that's one of the things that's
respectfully
distinctive
on
about
that.
my views.
We disagree respectfully
Yep.
on that. Now, NBC is reporting that you were once a recipient of a fellowship for immigrants and children of immigrants from the Soros Foundation. You were awarded the fellowship in 2011 to support your studies at Yale Law School. And the issue is that you, the child of Indian immigrants, are now accusing some immigrants of carrying out an invasion of the United States. And that as president, you would make it more difficult for children of immigrants born here to participate in the political process. The floor is yours to explain how you enjoyed from it, that you, Sharpton convinced you could run for president, Soros helped you through college. Explain all of this.
Come on. So you know what's really kind of funny about this? That you draw a distinction between legal and illegal immigrants like it doesn't exist. And I think that's a major problem in this country. I think that we need to use our own military to secure our own southern border. Not an armed invasion across somebody else's random border, but across our own border right here in the United States of America. I stand for that. I believe in the rule of law. My parents came to this country legally, through the front door, followed the rules, paid their taxes, raised 2 kids. Both of us went on to found companies that helped thousands of Americans. But that also means that your first act of entering this country cannot break the law. That's part of what it means to be an American. We believe in the rule of law.
All
so
right.
yes, I want to end funding for sanctuary cities, end foreign aid to Mexico and other countries.
You have no problem
illegal immigration.
with helping,
I am a hardliner on. Absolutely.
You have no problem with helping those immigrants that come here and follow the law and become citizens.
I want to help every legal citizen of this country. That's what America First means, putting every American first. And you see how I run this campaign, it's very different. I've gone to the south side of Chicago, to Kensington, in the middle of Philadelphia.
Right.
I haven't called Zelensky, but I have called people in West Maui. America First means every American.
All right, let me
but
ask
that means you have to come to this country legally, not illegally.
Let me ask you this. You say we run the country with a nation of laws and that we ought to follow the laws. Then how can you and your colleagues stand on a debate stage and say that you would endorse and support for president a man if he was convicted of breaking the law and a felony in Donald Trump? How can you say?
See, but that's what I'm saying though. Like, I feel like a lot of people probably disagree with me on it, but I feel like, honestly, like, all jokes aside, I feel like once President Trump wins, because I think it'll happen, and a lot of people don't think it will. Democrats, you know, but when this do happen, I honestly think that Ramaswamy will be a VP. But that's just my, I think so. Maybe, I don't know. But I honestly think that if that were to happen, he would definitely be a VP of Donald Trump.
Endorse and support for president a man if he was convicted of breaking the law and a felony in Donald Trump. How can you say, I will put a convict back in the White House, and you say that I'm
the way our
supporting
Constitution
the law?
and laws of this country work? First of all, I'm running to be the next president, and I expect to be the next president because I want to reunite this country in a way that we badly need. But I have made a pledge to be on that debate stage, and I intend to keep it because I think the way we do things in the United States of America is that the people of this country get to decide who governs, not the administrative police state. So for better or worse, if it's a guy I disagree with or a guy I agree with,
I'm talking
in this
about
case,
if
Donald
he
Trump, I
was
do agree with most of his
convicted
policies.
Of the crime.
But
the question
either
posed
way,
to you all
you got to follow the Constitution. You have to follow the Constitution.
Of a crime. If the Constitution is clear.
So the
if he's
Constitution
convicted of
does not eliminate you.
Conduct, he's eliminated. Let me then put it to you this way.
The Constitution governs. I believe in the Constitution, and the Constitution says we have a process for picking presidents in this country. I think we should follow it. I expect to follow it. I expect to be the next president. But even if it's not me, I will support anyone who follows that process.
If you became president, would you pardon Donald Trump for any of the crimes that he's been indicted for, or if he's convicted?
On the current facts that we have, he is one of many people that I have identified as someone I would pardon, because I do not think that this sets a good precedent for our country.
Come on,
Where a
Ramaswamy.
party in power
you're
uses
saying
force
even
to
before
indict
we
its
have-
political opponents in the middle of an
Even
election. There are
before-
Democrats on that
well,
list.
Wait a minute.
It
You
doesn't
got
matter.
19 people indicted. They're not running all of it. But even before you've heard the evidence, before the trials, you're saying that you would prejudge what is going to come out in trial and commit to pardoning them.
That's not
Yet
correct.
You claim
That's not correct. I've actually been very clear on this, Reverend. Assuming that the prosecution's statement of the facts in the indictment is the worst version of the facts, then yes, I would. So I waited till I read the indictments, cover to cover. In 99% of prosecutions, you and any lawyer will also know this. That's the worst statement of the facts you're going to get for the defense.
But it's not all that's going to come out of trial. You and I know that. That's not all that's going to come out of trial. So what I said is
assuming, well, I was very clear at the time. I said I've read the indictment, and assuming these are the worst facts, then yes, on these facts, I will pardon Trump. Just as, by the way, I've said I would pardon Julian Assange, who, by my best guess...
But he's talking about the trial, more stuff coming out of the trial. The trial not even here, so how could you even say that, oh, I'm not...
It's very different politics than I do, because again, we applied a different standard to Julian Assange.
Because when you talk about the law, you've also said that, I remember there was the big argument about you saying that people having the right to guns had something to do with slavery. When the Second Amendment was in 1791, slavery didn't end until 1865. I mean, you're very, very...
Well, I can actually share with you something about this. Chief Justice Taney, and you and I probably have some common ground here. In the Dred Scott case, which said that black people could not be citizens in the U.S., shamefully, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court gave his argument for why. He said it would allow black people to own guns in this country. That is shameful. Yes, it is part of our history. But just because some people may be for gun control today, we can't sweep that under the rug.
They didn't do the Second Amendment to help. Blacks couldn't get guns and fight. There were no, they were not fighting to give blacks guns. And when Taney said that,
so literally, that was the justification in the Dred Scott case for why black people couldn't be citizens.
Dred Scott
and the first
decision was not in
laws
1791, by the way. But one last thing.
It was before the Civil War, as you well know. And I think that we should confront our history and have an open and honest debate about it. That's what makes us stronger as a country.
Until the 13th
we gotta
Amendment,
acknowledge our history and confront it.
Let me ask you one last question. We're out of time.
And that's how we unite this country.
One thing we have in common with Trump is you've been criticized for trafficking in conspiracy theories. So here goes, do you believe, let me ask you this, because you and Trump have both been accused of trafficking conspiracy theories. Do you believe Barack Obama was born in the United States, and do you think it was appropriate for Trump to suggest to otherwise, even as evidence mounted, that the claim was a lie?
I think I have every reason to believe Obama was born in the U.S., and I have never brought up that issue, and I have no idea why we're actually discussing that. But what I have talked about
I feel like what Al Sharpton is doing right now is trying to catch Ramaswamy in mess, meaning trying to make him stumble up on words or trying to get more out of him so he can bring this up when the time comes. That's the vibe that I'm getting from Al Sharpton, and I really don't like when people do that. He's trying to get, a certain reaction, certain words from him, so he can bring it all and make this, topic, about what he's saying. I feel like that's more so what he's aiming for, switching words around that Ramaswamy is saying I'm not really liking.
Is, for example, Saudi Arabia was absolutely involved in 9/11, despite the fact that our government refused to acknowledge it. That COVID-19 did originate in a lab in China, despite the fact that our government called that a conspiracy theory. That we still haven't seen the transgender shooter manifesto out of Nashville. So those aren't conspiracy theories. Those are conspiracy realities. That's what matters.
Barack Obama was born in Kenya. He's a man that you said was the best president this century. Should he have continued trafficking the Kenya lie about Barack Obama?
Look, I will say, as a presidential candidate before he ran for president, I think he made absolutely the right decision to say that that was a ridiculous theory. Barack Obama was born in the United States. And frankly, I don't think we should dignify the things that aren't true versus talking about the hard things that were labeled conspiracy theories.
See, now you got to go. That's what I don't like, is that right there. That's what I don't like. That I don't
True
like
now.
that.
So I actually believe in truth over theory. I'm tied to facts.
All right, well, you certainly came, and you knew I was going to fight it out with you, and you stood up, did about 3 or 4 ducks, threw a couple. We'll do this again. Thank you,
I don't know about
2024
that,
presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy.
See, I feel like that's something that's not right. That's not okay though, because I feel like the whole time Al Sharpton was just trying to get a certain reaction or try to, because I just don't see. I don't know. It's a little odd the way he was moving, the question that he was asking. I feel like if you were wanting to talk about other things, that would be something. But talking about things that were very irrelevant, I feel like there was more to talk about, especially what Al Sharpton stands for. I feel like though it could have been better questions asked to Ramaswamy, especially a candidate that is well known now. It has been well known, and on top of that, a great candidate that's running right now. So I feel like honestly, I didn't agree with a lot with Al Sharpton, the move that he was trying to make. Honestly, I don't know. But definitely appreciate everybody tuning in, watching this reaction. Make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button. Much love to y'all. Catch y'all next one.